A pale face of gray concluded its sob over the world below. It carved a path of damp, cool air in its wake, and an eerie mist slightly obscured the earth. Not long after, animals emerged from their abode. The creatures walked, almost marching, to the pools of tears, intending to sip the remaining moisture. They watched vigilantly, scanning the surrounding trees and bushes. Often the creatures would sniff the air, breathe deeply, then exhale a ghost of relief. Birds chirped, calling to each other, and picked off the helpless worms that squirmed pathetically in the mud. Their babies cried weakly, mouths gaped in hunger, until finally the mouths were filled with satisfaction. However, over a hill a little far off was a low, distant rumbling. It grew closer, nearing the animals sipping peaceful moisture, nearing the squirming worms that feared for their lives, and nearing the birds that chirped songs of communication. The sound swelled, and as it did, it became a low growl, then developed into a clear voice of speed. Finally, a roar, monstrous with relative power, sliced through the air on its road of blackness. It startled the sipping creatures, causing them to cower back into their abode, and halted the birds' chirping. Beaming inside the air-slicing power was a man. His smile reached the corners of his face, and his eyes a glaze of anticipation. "We're almost home." The man looked back slightly, careful not to take his eyes off the narrow road while turning, but there was no reply. "Are you two okay back there?" The man waited until the road straightened before glancing at the rearview mirror. The glass revealed his family, his wife and newborn son. They slept silently in their seats. "This is beautiful," the man thought. He smiled, recalling the way his wife refused to leave the boy's side, even if for a moment. The faces of friends and families were phantoms in his mind. He remembered blushing at the friendly conversation and shivering with unbearable impatience. At last the doctor had let him in. His wife was looking down lovingly, caressing the baby. He was handed the child that slept so peacefully. "I love you, son, do you know that?" And now they were driving home. The clouds pulled back to show the azure sky beautifully surrounding the sun that beamed. After a short while they arrived home. His wife still slept. He pecked her on the cheek and carried her to the bed. He wasn't a particularly strong man, but on this day his body seemed to forget. He placed the baby in a basket at the foot of the bed and covered him with a blanket. He strolled over to the dresser where his mirror stood and noticed that he had worn the same clothes for days. "Look at yourself, you're a mess." He removed the stained blue shirt and pants and threw them in the hamper, then bathed and changed into his far more comfortable sweatpants and t-shirt, and finally walked back into his room. "I've got it," he said to himself. "I'll make breakfast and clean the house. She'll love that." So he went to work. He cooked pancakes and eggs. He opened the blinds to let the sun in, and finally he cleaned the house all before the missus could get out of bed. And when the baby woke up, he ran, scooped him up in his arms, and rocked him gently. Hailed by the scent of breakfast, the wife rose. She was groggy, vision slightly blurry, and her hair was a frazzled mess. She walked carefully as to not fall to dizziness. "I guess he came and got us while I was sleeping," she thought. The wife walked to the kitchen, appreciating the scent of recent cleaning as it floated through the air. It mixed nicely with the smell of breakfast, and she wondered if the store sold scents like this one. When she entered the kitchen, she noticed the man. "Good morning, stranger," she said as she drew nearer to the man. The man turned, smiling and feeding the baby with a bottle. "Good to see you're up, mother." Her smile faded and she took the baby from his hands. "Who are you?" She backed away slowly. "What kind of game is this, honey? Oh, that must be it. You didn't take your medicine today, did you?" He reached into his pocket and pulled a small orange container. "Here." "I'll call the police," she screamed. The baby's bottle crashed to the ground and shattered. "Now please calm down. You are off your medication." "I am not on any medication." She looked at the bottle to see that there was no label on it. "What are you doing in my house?" The baby began to cry. The man started, but she was already walking away. She wanted to run. She wanted to leave him and find John. Where is John? Her husband would know what to do. She walked painfully to the garage door. The man was right behind her, pleading for her to stop. She ignored him. "He's crazy." She flung the door open and turned on the light. Red smeared the floor. "No, John!" she called. She followed the crimson streaks to the corner, and the man was now nothing but muffled babblings behind her. The world spun violently and began to fade. The last words to fill her ears was, "I only wanted a family again, just one time." The man was now on the ground weeping, blood-stained scalpel in his hands. He called the police, speaking between sobs, and placed the baby on its basket. His death was a slow one. Before him was a son he would never again have, and the wife that left him.